Hey, Mike, you're going to be hosting a series of shows. You've got some candidates that you want to talk about. It is election time, and it is time for everybody to know where your candidates stand.
Thank you, Sabrina Watson and 286 Sunshine. This is Mike Cartwright, your host, and we're broadcasting here live, Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida. And yes, we have 11 Supervisor of Election candidates from the free state of Florida, and we're going to be introducing each and every one of them to you separately in a show that I'll be hosting and going county by county.
What's special about these 11 candidates?
Each one of them is challenging an incumbent because they want to bring back election integrity. They want to have accountability and transparency. Many of these candidates are within the same party as the incumbent, but they think that there's a problem and they want to bring back accountability and transparency. Live, hey, it's Mike Cartwright, and welcome to Save America with Election Integrity. And we have another Patriot, Florida Supervisor of Election candidate here with us today on our podcast. And we want to thank our host, and that is Sabrina Watson. And you can follow her at 286sunshine.com. And our guest today is another one of the 13 candidates that designated by these red counties here in our Florida map, where patriots have stepped up to challenge incumbent Supervisor of Elections to bring back accountability and integrity to our elections. And our guest today is from the Panhandle, Santa Rosa County. And I have this interesting, CindyHall is a expert, is a clinical lab scientist, a lab quality inspector, auditor, sales executive for Abbott Laboratories for 20 years, a member of Defend Florida, was a chair of her Republican Executive Committee, a committee chair, an auditor and secretary, field organizer for the Trump campaign, Citizens for Medical Freedom, and endorsed by the Florida Republican Assembly, and also endorsed by the Santa Rosa County Chapter Liberty Caucus. And the website is CindyHallCampaign.com. Welcome to our show from Santa Rosa County, Cindy Hall.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm also endorsed by Mike Lindell, Ann Vandersteel, and Roger Stone.
Well, that's pretty impressive. That's amazing. That's impressive. And wow, I didn't know you had those endorsements. That's great. Well, listen, maybe you could tell us more about yourself and about your campaign, please.
Yes, my background has always been in the medical field. As a clinical lab scientist, I'm the one that runs the lab tests that your doctor orders. And as such, everything that I do is about accuracy. Discrepancies are reconciled, and everything is quality measured, it's transparent, it's documented, and it's absolutely meticulous. As a sales rep, I had to not only run the instrumentation, but I had to understand the inner workings of it, the mechanics, and I had to understand the competitors. So I'm accustomed to having to understand how instruments work. That's relating to my opinions about the tabulators. And also, as an auditor and inspector, my name goes behind anything. It means that it's absolutely perfect before I sign it. So that speaks to my career about being accurate, transparent, and accountability. So when I go to work the elections, which I decided to do, and I think I got started in 2017, I expected that our election process and our election laws and everything would be done just as well, pursuing excellence. And what I found was that it's 180 degrees the opposite.
I understand. I appreciate you sharing that. And particularly, I want to make sure that our viewers know that having that science background, that particularly in your field with medical and science, that people's lives depend upon you getting good, accurate information. And thus, why we're here, because that was our concern with our elections. Do we have accountability and transparency? Are our elections being done correctly? And it's a science. It's not an art, and it's not, well, close enough. We want our elections to have 100% integrity. Thus, our show, Save America with Election Integrity. And we want to applaud you and the other candidates stepping up to try and bring that back to our elections. Thank you very much. Please tell us more. What are you concerned about? I heard you say that word tabulator. Explain it to me like an 18-year-old voter for the first time. What is a tabulator?
Oh, the tabulator. That's that trash can that you put your ballot in. That's basically what it is. Yeah. Did you know that when your ballot goes in, it drops into a trash can? It does. That screen does not. We as voters are guaranteed that our vote is going to count as cast. Well, is it? As a scientist, I need to see evidence. There's no evidence showing me how my vote was counted. You know, does it populate on the screen? Cindy, you voted for Trump, Gates, Redmond, confirm or reject, like your ATM? Does it show like your grocery store when you barcode one something? Does it show what you bought and the price? Do you get a receipt? No, there's nothing on that screen but a stupid green check mark, which is meaningless, which tells me it's obscuring transparency. I don't know how my vote was counted. Furthermore, there are laws that are just, it's absurd. There are laws protecting the vendors, how they write the code to read our ballots. As citizens, we should have the right to know how it is managing that data. And as I said before, when I sold instruments, I sold against like technologies, but the reason I was able to be successful is because I could explain that the difference between, say, two flow cytometers isn't that the laser's different or the readings are different, it's how it manages the data. So when I go to work the elections, I want to understand how that tabulator is managing the data. And what I learned is I'm not allowed. That doesn't set well with me. The tabulators also, we were told originally, they're hooked to the internet for a couple years. And then when 2020 came around, all of a sudden we're being told, oh no, they're not hooked to the internet. But I worked the polls, and our voter book that told us the instructions for what to do at the end of the night, it actually says that we are to assess the signal. It will automatically transmit. If it's disconnected, it will automatically connect to the server. And in 2022, there was a button on the front of it that said begin modem process. So that is not the internet, because our Secretary of State, Cord Bird, has told us in no uncertain terms that that is not the internet. So I wouldn't want to suggest to anyone that that's the internet. I have a problem with that because I don't know if that tabulator is fractionating my vote or flipping my vote. And the only way I would be able to detect something like that would be to use an audit process where we would actually manually look at paper ballots and count the total for any one given candidate to be able to determine, is it giving the same number as the tabulator? And if it's not, then we could detect if it was fractionating or flipping. But what we do, and this is the SOE's choice, what we do is we take those ballots from the tabulator and put them into another electronic device called Clear Audit to perform the audit. Again, my science background throws red flags, because in doing that audit between the tabulator and the Clear Audit is a validation, and a validation has an allowable percentage of error. That is not an audit. As an auditor and inspector, I can tell you that in an audit, you're not looking for things to be similar, you're looking for things to be different. And if there's one discrepancy in an audit, you would actually do what we call a root cause analysis, get to the bottom of it, and then assess if there is a trend or a pattern. What we're doing in these elections are not audits. That's actually the wrong terminology. It's a validation. So as SOE, it's written on the website that they have two options. You can either use the electronic, or there is an option to take 2 or 3 precincts, choose random candidates, 2 or 3 different random candidates, count the paper ballots, and check them against what the tabulator total is. That would be my preference, but that's not what we're doing. So those are just a few of my concerns about the tabulators and the audits.
Well,
And that's just the
thank you for explaining that. I understand that there may be a concern about bloated voter rolls there in Santa Rosa County. What is all that about?
Well, this is the thing that I don't think people understand, is that when people say they're obeying the law, you assume that the law is written to be accurate and what we good, wholesome citizens would consider right. Well, our laws are not written that way, and our laws about the voter rolls actually force us to have bloated voter rolls with every election. Now, I haven't studied the laws, but I will explain what my SOE has told us is that how somebody might get removed is if they didn't vote in an election, a postcard would then go to that household. And if they have died, gone to prison, moved out of the county, the person who now resides at that household would have to sign a postcard saying this person doesn't live here anymore and get it back through the post office. And if the SOE gets it, then that person would come off. Now, how often does that actually happen? I think it's absurd that our law hinges upon a good Samaritan sending a postcard back through the mail. That also insinuates that with every election, anyone who has moved since the past election is going to be on there. So our voter rolls are not representative of our community at the time of the election. We have military who declare this their home of record. So that does inflate our numbers. Judicial Watch has cited Santa Rosa County a number of times that we have more voters than we have citizens of age eligibility to vote. And our SOE repeatedly tells us it's just the military. Well, it's not just the military, because obviously the people that have moved out of the county are still on there until after they miss an election. So the law is absolutely dictating that we have bloated voter rolls.
Let me see if I can get that cleared for the people that don't know Santa Rosa County better, because I don't. I understand your county seat is Milton. Is there military bases within Santa Rosa County? Are there any nearby where the service people commute back and forth? What's going on with it?
No, what it is people want to declare this county as their home of record, even if they're in Turkey or Afghanistan or whatever. This would be their residence.
And you were telling us about the military being part of the voter rolls.
Yes, the military can declare this county as their home of record and vote technically from here. The point being that that is not what is truly inflating the voter rolls. It is the way the law is written and the way that basically people don't come off. We have 31,000 people in the last 12 months who've been moved from active to inactive, and probably a couple 10,000s of those are people who really should be removed. But there was legislation that came forth, SB 524 in January 2023, that would have removed the voters that should have come off. But with SB 7050, it got removed. So now we have bloated voter rolls still. So it's unfortunate, but the laws are written to bloat the voter rolls. That's the bottom line.
So we have a problem with our voter rolls. Well, now, what about non-citizens in our voter rolls? What kind of problem is that?
Well, I term that more about citizenship verification. Years ago, I went to the local office and they said, well, that's done in Tallahassee. And I talked to Maria Matthews, the division director. She's the director of the Division of Elections in Tallahassee. She said, no, that's being done at the local level. Cord Bird, our Secretary of State, told us in December 2023 that it's an issue with the federal government. So basically, everyone's pointing the finger at someone else. And the reality is we could do that right here. The DMV does it when they give someone a driver's license. People may not be aware that non-citizens can get a driver's license, and it looks just like yours and mine. So if that's handed to a poll worker, they don't know the difference. So it would behoove us to have the DMV at the end of the night, not only send over to the SOE the registrations that were done that day, but also a list of the non-citizens who got driver's license that day, so that the SOE would have something to compare against. Because the non-citizens, if they wanted to, they could mark that they're a citizen. And according to Cord Bird, there was a court ruling by the Supreme Court on the NVRA that says we cannot challenge that until after they are registered. And then it's a long and lengthy process. So all that could be resolved with just simply supervisors of elections asking people to bring in their birth certificate, or working more closely with the DMV to get that data. It's not that hard.
What else can you share about Santa Rosa's unique problems or similarities with election integrity? A lot of people 4 years ago thought there was a problem with our election, and we're very much concerned about that again here in August, which is where your race is most important, because I want to make sure your supporters and those people that are looking to consider who they're going to vote for, your election is in the August 20th primary, because you are up against an incumbent who is in the same party. So there's a sense of urgency that the people get to know that they have a choice, a better choice, and why you are the right woman for that.
Because my ultimate goal would be to hand count videotaped, hand count paper ballots, because we could do that. It ends within an hour of the polls closing, and it can be done the entirety of the day. And that is the only way that we are going to know that our votes are counted as cast. It's the only way that we know for sure we are eliminating the foreign influence that is in the tabulators, which are the Chinese components and the foreign written software. So if we want to save this nation, we have to do hand count of paper ballots. And since the legislators in Tallahassee are forcing us to use tabulators, the only way that we can, within that legal framework, verify it would be to do the manual, just as I described before, the manual audits where we would actually physically count from the paper ballots.
Well, I like it. I like taking the internet and the mystery of black hats and people who are possibly trying to influence our election and take away. It's all about we the people, and we're the ones that are supposed to be voting. It's supposed to be an election, not a selection. So we don't need to have any kind of mystique, mysteries, or problems. And if it's on the internet, it can be interfered with. It can be hacked. It can be changed. It could be manipulated. And they used to do hand counting, and you're explaining it can be done in a timely manner, that the people can have the results of the vote within the same time period. We just need to get away from the people who have manipulated the system to allow this to happen. And then particularly, I'm sorry that there in your county that you're not getting the accountability and transparency. I understand that in other counties, their FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, public records request, they're either coming, they're not coming back, they're not being granted, or they're being delayed, or they're being heavily redacted, or they're being quoted prices that are just way beyond reasonable. And it's and what we surmise is that it's to try and keep everything hidden and not let we, the people, actually know that our vote did count.
I agree. I agree because the laws are written to give the vendors have control. They can even do updates on these tabulators, and the SLEs don't even know that it's happening. They have laws to protect them as being proprietary, and the laws are written to bloat the voter rolls. So the laws are being handed to us that tie our hands from having the accuracy and the transparency we need. The citizenry, we have to take control of our elections and take it away from the foreign influence. Get rid of the tabulators, get rid of the EVIDs, which is the electronic voter ID, and we need to go back to hand count paper ballots ultimately. But in the meantime, we do have some solutions to address these issues to stopgap it. One of those I would do would be for the voter rolls is we could work with the post office, and when they have a change of address, we could follow up with that individual by mailing them a affidavit that they could have notarized and signed, sending back saying, I no longer live in this county, please remove me from the voter rolls, so that we could take them off before the next election. That would be one, that's just one of my solutions. In my sales career of 20 years, to be successful, I had to come up with creative ideas to overcome all the hurdles. And that's what I bring to the table that my opponent doesn't, because she just wants to always stay in a box and she just says, I'm just ministerial, just obeying the laws. And yet at the same time says we influence the laws. And the laws have been influenced to take away the clean voter rolls. So I'm all about finding the solutions and correcting the problems within the crippled process that we have been handed us by Tallahassee legislators, but ultimately to take control of our elections.
Well, now, anything that you would care to share about Defend Florida and what they do, and particularly what y'all found in Santa Rosa County?
I work with Defend Florida, actually knocking the doors and canvassing. One instance is I was talking to a gentleman for quite some time before we figured out that he and his wife and daughter didn't vote. The voter at that house was actually the man that they had bought the house from 6 years before. We found lots where there's just trees. There was no house there, things like that. And investigating those and getting affidavits signed, we were able to create the law SB 524, which I said, passed in January 2023, and it would have actually removed people from the rolls that haven't. We had a gentleman that's been living in Connecticut for 20 years. We have somebody who's been dead for 14 years. We have somebody that's not voted in 42 years. These are examples of people that need to come off the voter rolls, and they should have, but our SOE said, I can't do anything because I don't have any rules. So she did nothing to remove them. And then the SB 7050, which went into effect so that Governor DeSantis could run for president and remain governor, it stripped that clean voter rolls from the law. So now we're back to the apparently about 31,000 excess names on our voter rolls. We're back to where we started. The Florida Supervisors of Elections professional organization, all 67 of them did, as my understanding is, they hired lobbyists to influence our legislators so that we would have no substantive changes. That was the verbiage, no substantive changes to our election integrity in 2024. And so that's how we lost that removal of the bloated voter rolls. So that's not just being sloppy and not doing a good job. That's actually working against the best interest of the citizenry.
Let me see if I understand that race that you're in for August 20th. You're up against incumbent who's in the same party. And there's another challenger also in there. Is there a challenger in the opposite party? Is there a candidate from that? Okay, so it's all people from the same Republican party who are running for the office. Well, I see here that you were a committee chair for your Republican Executive Committee. What were you the chair of?
That's when we created a forum for all the gentlemen that were going to run for county commissioner. And I was the chair of the committee. What we did is we came up with the same questions for each one of them, and we allowed them to come into a forum and answer them, not knowing what any of the other ones were saying. So that's how we basically vetted them, and then we shared that information with the public so they would know what the county commissioners' platforms were.
Well,
And I
thank you.
served as
Thank you for being in your rec and particularly being active and chairing a committee. I've got to ask, you're up against an incumbent who's also in the same party. Is that incumbent a member of the rec and attend, and are they active there?
No, she's not a member of the Republican Executive Committee. She's been an incumbent for a very long time. And on the one hand, many people trust her and like her. She's a very nice, amiable person. But those of us who work in election integrity see how very sloppy things are. And there's been 3 people in our community who have gone to vote, and they were told they've already had their vote cast, and she would not investigate it. And one gentleman, she never even returned his call. So I'm not standing here because I decided to do this. There's an army of people in our community that have told me, you've got to go do this because we need another alternative. I
imagine a few of those are from your own rec, from your own.
Oh yeah. Oh, my whole rec. Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Yes. Because we just have an establishment here, and it's not just with SOE, it's the city councils. We have an establishment here, and we need to just get some fresh blood in there with a different perspective who will actually get some traction and make some changes.
So we're back in here now again with CindyHall, Supervisor of Election candidate for Santa Rosa County, and her website is CindyHallCampaign.com. I'm going to repeat that. Cindy, C-I-N-D-Y, Hall, H-A-L-L, campaign.com. And your race is in August 20th. So we want to make sure all your viewers and supporters know where they can find out more information about you, and particularly also look at our campaign, social media, Save America with Election Integrity. Again, thank our host, 286 Sunshine. That was Sabrina Watson, and CindyHall for Supervisor of Elections, Santa Rosa County. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you.